Sunday morning news, views, and interviews. Your host, Aaron Mayer, and our esteemed guest is a past host whose shoes, I managed to try to fit. They were a little bit tiny, but, she also got big feet. So I did manage to get her shoes on. Our former past host, Nell Stokes Holmes, civil rights activist, community leader, again, longtime dear friends. And, Nell, first and foremost, in the spirit of Art Mitchell, because both you and I have sat in this chair. And as you know, a show that's, almost 70 years old.
Yeah.
It's just good to keep this fire going. And, today we're here, actually kind of a bit of sad news, because as you and I try to preserve memory in institutions, an institution has passed. And today, today we want to honor our sister Alice Green. So Nell Stokes Holmes, welcome back.
Thank you so much.
So I don't see this as going to be me driving the seat as opposed to us co-sharing the seat, because we both, you know this seat very, very, very well, and I'm going to try not to disappear like that.
Okay.
But a lot's changed, as you can see, with the digital format and COVID. The digital studio format allows us to still have a great show, but allows, I've done shows from when I was sitting over in Africa and the Middle East. So that's one of the amazing things about this digital studio. Did you ever think that you would be seeing news views in this kind of format?
No, not at all. Technology is amazing, isn't it?
It's amazing how technology adapts, to our needs. Now, first and foremost, tell the listeners again, folks probably remember, but we have a lot of new listeners. Tell us a little bit about your background. Another lady from Montgomery, Alabama. You've lived through, some stuff.
Absolutely. I was born and raised in Montgomery, Alabama, and lived through the Jim Crow South with all the rules and regulations against Black folk, and it changed a teeny weeny bit, but it seems like we make 2 steps forward and 3 steps backwards, and that's not a good thing. But go ahead.
It's really fascinating because Montgomery, is, as I said, when we talk about the sparks that really ignites the fights, and folks can look at B-roll footage of news accounts of children being attacked by dogs, fire hose, beaten by police, Bull Connor, of Selma. I mean, you were a teen literally growing up in that. I mean, it's, the steel courage, because a lot of people don't realize a lot of the kids that were in a lot of those protests were literally kids that walked out of middle school. They were walking out of middle school and high school.
Yeah, absolutely. I was there during the beginning of the bus boycott. In fact, I participated. I volunteered, as I'm always volunteering for something. But when I was 16, the bus boycott happened, and this African American person named Eddie Posey, they used part of one of his taxi cab stands, the building for his cab company. They used it as a headquarters. And I kept passing by. I saw these people, in there milling around. And so one day, because I just wanted to know what's going on, I went in to ask if I could help with anything. And so I volunteered to just do, I call it just menial things, but things that needed to be done. Sweeping and dusting and picking up papers and taking things back and forth to different places where they needed to go, things like that, and that's sort of how I became an activist, I think.
And 16, you were 10th grade, right? You were 10th grade in high school.
Yeah, 10th grade, 16 years old. And actually 11th grade, 16 years old. And I yeah, I just wanted to be a part of what was going on. And actually, as because of my upbringing, my background, my parents were really poor, so I never got a chance to ride. I think I only rode the bus 3 or 4 times because I walked back and forth to everywhere we went. We walked, but this was just such a moment when I felt like I wanted to have a little bit to do with it. And so I went and I volunteered for a few months, helping in that office space, doing things that just needed to be done that, the adults didn't really have time to do.
Right.
And so I thought I'd lend my hand and do a little help with that. And so, yeah, I learned a lot in there. I learned that I needed to be registered to vote.
Okay.
And so when I turned 18, I went down to the county to register to vote. Well, there was an exam. First, you had to pay $5.
Okay.
To take the exam, and there was 66 questions on that exam, and I took it twice, and both times they told me I failed.
Really? A lot of people don't realize that even the U.S. Immigration and Naturalization Service immigration exam was not as tough as the exams that they put before blacks to deny them the right to vote.
Right.
A lot of people, and it's ironic because Alice Green, I know that she grew up in the Adirondacks, but I did not know that she was also from South Carolina. When you came to the Capital Region, when was your first time meeting with Alice? How did your paths cross?
I got here in October 1963, and I think it was like a few years later, like closer to 65, 69, that I was at a meeting at the Urban League. If I'm not mistaken, Urban League used to be on Livingston Avenue on that corner there.
Yep.
And that's where I met Alice. And ever since, it's like I've known her all those years. And one day I said to her, because I felt like I needed to say this to her, that she, out of all the people who were activists in the city of Albany, she was real. She remained the same all the time. She never changed. She didn't go from one to the other thing. She stayed the same, Alice Green, with her determination and her convictions. She just kept them the same. So throughout, some people got tired and moved away, walked away or whatever, but she never walked away. She was always an activist and always one of my local sheroes. Really, I looked up to her.
Really?
And yes, I did. Yeah, absolutely. She encouraged me in so many different ways. The things that she did, the way she did things, the way she spoke out, and the way she carried herself in the presence of elected officials and all those people. I just admired her so much. Yeah, absolutely.
Did she have an idea? Did she know of your background in the civil rights era?
Well, not initially, but we had a chance to do. Paul Murray, right? Professor Paul Murray, Siena College. He was a professor over there, and he taught a class on the civil rights movement. And he had some of us who had participated in the movement speaking to his class members. And Alice Green was one of the people. I was one of the people that was chosen. So during those years of doing that, 5 or 6 years, I did that for him in different semesters. And Alice Green was also there. So she learned about my activities, and I learned a lot about her as well.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. And, she lost to our archives because of the way we used to do the show. As you remember, we would go into the studio and it was recorded there and loaded up to the server. And unfortunately, at least 25 years of my recordings, just don't exist. I just wish that they had a vault of all the shows because, she had done several, in fact, just about almost was saying, "Oh, I'll get her latest book that she just recently did of her childhood, you know, growing up in the Adirondacks." And there's just those folks, because as you know, she was an avid runner. I mean, she was doing all the right things. I mean,
Right.
sadly, she just recently caught COVID, recovering from COVID. And immediately thereafter, though they're saying that this is not related to the COVID, but clearly her health system was weakened by it, and it's just shocked all of us. And
yeah, absolutely, it was such a shock to me.
Her husband Charles is, like I said, he's definitely in our prayers. I dropped over to see him and hug him. I just said, brother, as with the loss of any deep family, this is a significant loss. Listen, let's get this commercial break in. We'll be right back. News, views, and interviews. Your host, Aaron Mayer, with our guest, Nell Stokes, Albany County, Albany City civil rights activist, and both of us long dear friends of the late Alice Green. Sunday morning news, views, and interviews. Your host, Aaron Mayer, our guest, former radio host of this very show, jock and radio co-host emeritus Nell Stokes. Both of us of Albany, deep activist roots in this community. We're celebrating our memory and legacy of the late Alice Green, a longtime servant of the people, of the community, of all citizens, loving wife and mother, and notable friend of our dear brother Charles Toohey. Again, our hearts and our love go out to the entire Toohey and Green family and their clan and their extended family. What a loss! But these things, these seasons do come. Though we feel young in heart, and we are still youth in our minds and our hearts in the struggle, but our bodies now fail us, and we have to realize that we are the elders who pass on the memory of struggle and memory of the causes, but now the memory of the movement leader who has passed. And so, my dear sister Nell Stokes, I am glad that you and I at least are having this debrief.
Yeah, I am too. I thought about it when I heard it, and it's like, wow, that is amazing. Some people you think they're never going to die, but we all know that tomorrow's not promised to us, and we don't get a message saying when it's going to happen. We can't warn people ahead of time. It just happens. And when it happens, to certain people, we're just devastated. And I just feel so sad today. And I'm so glad you reached out so that we could talk about this.
No, it's important, because this is how we heal, but we celebrate. She had a life well lived.
Absolutely.
She grew up a poor young girl, again, born in South Carolina, but she grew up, raised in the Adirondacks in Mineville, New York. And she lived, as they say, that struggle of that era, of that 60s, 50s and 60s, in an area that also, again, extreme north. We talk about the deep south. This is the up north. And racism
right. Absolutely.
was just as visible there. And her struggles growing up, but still persevering. And her struggles just made her stronger.
Absolutely. I went to her, the book signing of the recent book that I don't know if it's a recent one. She might have written before this, but We Who Believe in Freedom.
Yes.
I went to the book signing for that. And one of the things that she said, I just want to read something. It says, this inspirational book exposes readers to weighty topics such as politics, abuse, accountability, criminal justice, and prison reform, and historic political abuse of power in Albany. She was just so outspoken about everything, and it just touched my heart so much. And I was just so happy to be there when she for the book signing of this new book. And, I purchased it. She signed it, and I'm in the process of reading it. Of course, I have so many books to read. It's taken me a while, but she is just an inspirational woman, and the very definition, I think, of phenomenal woman.
Yeah, she has been a professor, a lecturer. She's been, as they say, a fighter of causes. I mean, Albany, she took on the machine when it wasn't popular.
Right.
She battled the machine and the racism, in the machine. She's been one of my inspirational leaders and supporters. I mean, we'll talk a little bit about the Scene newspaper, but as you know, I won 3 major voting rights cases, and 3 of the most significant voting rights cases in upstate New York. And she has been one of the consulting forces behind that. I think the second one, we got an affidavit from her in it. But she understood the need to put the history of the harm against our people on the public record.
Absolutely.
And whether it's the criminal justice fights, but in the case of the voting rights and civil rights fight, she was very instrumental in helping us pull together the information, because you have to prove the harm. You can't say it's unfair. You have to prove, the burden is upon you to prove the harm against Black people. And she, as you know, in her books, in the stories, in her causes, she was always about the evidence. Don't talk the noise. Here is the evidence. Here is the fact. She was Dr. Alice Green, and she always was a stickler for the evidence, because you cannot tear down and indict a system without the facts of what it has.
Absolutely. You definitely have to have the facts in all situations. I remember the one time when you called me up and asked me to run for Albany County Legislature, because the NAACP had won that case on redistricting. That's what it was about. Yeah. And so.
And she, like I said, she and Charles have always, you may remember, we had the Field of Dreams, and she and Charles, from the point of prevention, she was one of the earlier backers of some of our earlier dollars of the Field of Dreams in Arbor Hill. And it wasn't just the South End. She was for all Black communities in all upstate New York. Again, from her childhood up in the Adirondacks, all the way down to people down in Coxsackie. She did not have the parochial, when we talk about the capital region in Albany, a little narrow-minded Albanian sense. Right. She fought for Black people no matter where they came from, because many of the incarcerated came from New York City or big cities from around the state. And she was that beacon of light and hope in their lives, in advocacy, for better and more humane treatment, but more importantly, just questioning the modality and the methodology and validity of mass incarceration. Are we really breaking the cycle? And she talked about alternative ways to do this. And she was a pioneer on the Albany City Police Civilian Review Board.
Right, absolutely.
Another point, since I love history, of intersection of you and Alice, was the African American Cultural Center or Museum there in the South. And tell us a little bit about the inspiration and her hopes and aspirations in trying to get an institution up that would, capture that need.
Yeah, her dream was to have an African American Culture Center that would highlight the progress and the things that African Americans had done right here in the city of Albany. And, when I went to that first, I think it was maybe the second meeting they had about pulling it all together. And I was so impressed with the presentation. And when I listened to the presentation, I could envision her dream. So that's when I volunteered to be, I became the volunteer executive director for the African American History Center. And I was there for 18 months, helping to get it off the ground, get it started. And that was one of the most important things that I think I've done. It's among the most important things I've done for the city was to help to get that up and off the ground.
And another thing, and I'm not sure whether, Art or actually even Allison, she was the editor when the Scene newspaper was in the South End. And before it came up to Albany, I didn't join the Scene until like 1987. By that time, it was sitting right now where the current Arbor Hill Development Corporation offices are.
Mm-hmm.
Reggie Knox was the editor then. But Barbara Allen, that's where I met Barbara Allen, Larry Malden, and a lot of folks. And that was my entree to activism in the community. But first was getting to know the community by being a reporter and writing. Mm-hmm. But the Scene we talk about writing and her love of documenting. The Scene was one of the things that she was one of the pioneering editors for.
Absolutely. It began at Trinity Institution, and Alice Green was the executive director there when she started it. And then after a while, Art Mitchell took it over. In fact, I wrote a few articles for the Scene myself, especially when I developed the Black American Essay Contest for the Albany YWCA. I would write each month something about African American history in order to get people involved in allowing their children to participate in the YWCA African American History Essay Contest. And so during that time, I was able to be one of the people that were included in the as a writer. And so that too was one of the highlights of my life. Like so many highlights, so many things that I've been involved with like Art Mitchell and so many different people over my lifetime. Larry Burwell, I don't know if you remember.
Yeah, I remember Larry. Yes, I did. Yeah.
He was like the NAA at the Albany NAACP. And all those people down through the years who have shaped our community and helped us to be the people that we needed to be for our community, and to get people involved in being active in trying to make a change and do those things that would uplift us rather than push us down.
And it's interesting that arc of that story, and we share this because, Albany is our intersection of you and I, mm-hmm. but our relationship is literally over great people like Alice Green.
Absolutely.
Art Mitchell, Larry mm-hmm. Burwell. I mean, the names that you mentioned, we can point to day, place, and space. And these were already commanders in the field. I was just then a new soldier to the movement in the capital region, an old soldier to the movement in general. But, these were folks, that dared you to do the best and do the impossible if necessary. People right. talk about the incinerator fight. But these were things that, while they did not know the science, they did provide the funds and the support and the platform by which you could get the message out, being able to write about it and having an instrument. Alice has done so much. The Toohey family has done so much. And, a lot of folks did not know that she and Charles were married because clearly, like Elizabeth Floyd and I, we keep our maiden names, but they were always part of the pillar of progressive politics, within our community.
Absolutely.
And what makes this show special, and I'm glad we did this, because they were also the progressive part of your life and my life.
Absolutely. Yeah. She's gonna be sorely missed in this city. She's done so much for so many people, and she's made a difference for so many people that people don't even realize the difference she's made in the community for them and the benefits they're reaping because of Alice Green.
My dear sister, this is a tough hour for us, but we shall heal. Do come back, because you and I have a lot more to talk about, because I want to make sure we get your stellar past and more details on that when digging that. But this was about Alice, and I'm thanking you for allowing me to process my grief, but share it with another friend and sister in the struggle. Thank you. And
thank you so much.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you too.